again, if you guys want to get a topic on the show, send me an email at gottalovethemmovies@gmail.com. All right, so this is what Redacted83 had to say in his email. He says, a cardinal film sin for me is if they do credits at the start of a film. I'm talking about names appearing in the start scenes of a film without a proper credit scene. Always tells me it will be a rubbish film. Take the film Jiu-Jitsu, for example. It's one of the poorest films I've seen in ages, and I knew it would be because of the credits at the start, LOL. What are some of your cardinal film sins? Well, Redacted83, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate the email. And again, if you guys want to send me an email, if you want to get a question or comment on the show, send me an email at gottalovethemmovies@gmail.com. So, yeah, I mean, what you're talking about with, because I haven't seen the movie Jiu-Jitsu, it just looks terrible. I think it got something like a 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. Really bad. Yeah, and specifically that style of what you're referring to, of having the credits pop up in kind of the opening film sequences and not giving it a proper opening title sequence, that kind of used to be the style. If you remember, go back to the 90s, to like the early 90s. That was the style, the movie would start and the story would go, and you would just get, the names of the actors popping up as, the story started, without actually filming an opening that was designed to tell the story in a way that also allows the credits to pop up. You know what I'm talking about? There's the story moving on and just flashing the names, and then there's a carefully crafted story to tell the name, to have credits at the beginning of the movie. They're kind of two separate things, right? But yeah, I mean, that used to be the style way back in the 90s. That's even an editing choice, stylistic choice for television nowadays, right? So if you look at this kind of stuff in television and things like that, and then they transfer it over into the films, I mean, yeah, I kind of see what you're talking about. It means, in that regard, there is a major lack of planning. There is a major lack of planning. So if there was a lack of planning for the opening title sequence, or if there was a lack of planning to even have an opening title sequence and to just throw the names in willy-nilly, what else does that say? I've often heard it said, if you want to know how clean the kitchen is in a restaurant, go use the bathroom. Because the cleanliness of the bathroom will reflect the cleanliness of the kitchen. So let's think about this in terms of filmmaking, right? The cleanliness of the opening title sequence is indicative, or it should be indicative, or let's be honest, it will be indicative of the cleanliness of the film or of the story that is about to come, right? So yeah, is that a film sin for you? 1,000%. But you asked me what some of my cardinal film sins were. So I've put together a top five. And these are going to be in no specific order except for number one right here, Deus Ex Machina. That's at the top of my list. You guys, the use of Deus Ex Machina in film, in storytelling, is way too prevalent. If you're not familiar with Deus Ex Machina, it's Latin, and it translates to the God Machine. Essentially, it translates to the God Machine. And it's a storytelling device that storytellers use to kind of get to where they're going easily, right? The classic example that I use all the time is in the movie Taken. The entire movie is built on this idea or this concept that Liam Neeson's character has a very specific set of skills. He knows what he's doing. He's cultivated this specific set of skills over many years, right? And he can get himself in and out of any situation that he's put in. So in the third act of the movie, he goes through and he uses particular set of skills to kill all kinds of guys and to find his daughter who's been kidnapped in Europe and blah, 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 whatever, right? But in the third act of the movie, towards the end, if you remember, he's handcuffed against, he's handcuffed to a fire sprinkler pipe that's hanging from the ceiling. Now, if you know anything about these fire sprinkler pipes, they are by design, meant to hold thousands and thousands of pounds worth of weight. So if you see one of these fire sprinkler things, like one of those pipes hanging out of the ceiling, I don't encourage anyone to do this. Please do not do this. But if you hang from the pipe, it's not going to fall out of the ceiling. So when he was handcuffed to this pipe, it just happened to come loose. And then, he was, able to get his handcuffs over the pipe and fall to the ground and beat the crap out of all the guys that held him captive and were torturing him, right? That is an example of Deus Ex Machina, the God machine. God, an act of God, essentially, intervened in this situation to get our protagonist out of the situation that they were in through no effort of their own. Especially when this movie set up the rules of the movie, which is to say, he has a very particular set of skills and whatever. Deus Ex Machina intervenes when it's convenient to get to the next stage of the story. Well, how are we going to get our hero out of this situation? I don't know. How about the pipe comes loose and then he can kick their butts? I hate Deus Ex Machina so much. I mean, it's used in so many movies and it's so frequent that, like, okay, fine. In some cases, it just is what it is. But it's sloppy, and it drives me nuts. My second, and again, these are in no particular order except for Deus Ex Machina. Another cardinal film sin for me is that sometimes there's stark edits in between one scene to another, and sometimes they just don't allow the moment to breathe a little bit, right? So sometimes you'll have like a really dramatic moment where something happens and you just need like an extra 1 second of screen time or 2 seconds of screen time to just kind of let the audience like have a moment to like sit with the same moment that the main character or whatever character's on screen is sitting with, right? So I don't have a specific example of this off the top of my head, but let's just say that like your main character of whatever movie you're watching, let's just say that their mother comes up to them and says, "I have cancer." You'll see the reaction of like, "Oh!" And then it cuts, not all the time, but every now and again, it'll cut very, very quickly to the next scene. We get the establishing shot of the park outside, and we get a second establishing shot of the main character sitting in a bench, and now we get a third shot. The next shot is like close up on the main character's face, like dealing with the grief and the fallout of finding out that their mother has cancer, right? We needed an extra beat. We needed an extra moment. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds of just, wow. And then cut. But sometimes they cut it way too fast, way too quickly, and it frustrates me till no end. My third one is not following the film's own established rules. Now, part of this falls into the Deus Ex Machina category, but let me expand on this a little bit. Every movie, doesn't matter what the movie is, needs to establish the rules of this universe. Oftentimes, the rules of the universe of the story within the story that we're watching, right? Is implied because it's a reflection of the world and the universe that we live in, right? Gravity works the same way in the story as it does for us in real life. Emotions work the same way. That sort of thing, right? But then you get into more fantastical type of storytelling. And let me use Pirates of the Caribbean, for example. Pirates of the Caribbean is a fantastical story. It's a fantastical film where sometimes fantastical events happen. Now, curses exist in this world. One of the things that this movie establishes early on is that the Black Pearl, the ship that all the pirates sail around on, is the most feared ship out of any other ship in the Caribbean. Now, I understand it's the most feared ship in the Caribbean, or the Caribbean, however you want to pronounce it, because it has a curse set upon it. And the people who are on board the Black Pearl are cursed and they can never die. And it's the most feared ship. But when we move on to the next movie, well, guess what? Davy Jones's ship is the same thing. Like, his ship is cursed. His ship, it's like a submarine. It goes underwater. The people working on his ship, well, they can never die either. So why is his ship now even more feared than the Black Pearl was, right? And I understand, from sequels to sequels to sequels, you have to up the ante. You have to up the stakes. I get that. But why, if you already establish this one thing as the most blank of any other blanks, right? Why do we negate that and just create whole brand new things? Let me go back to the example of Taken with Liam Neeson. That film didn't follow its own established rules, right? Which is to say, he has a very particular set of skills. He can get himself out of any situation, right? But what was needed to get him out of the pipe situation? Deus Ex Machina, right? And these two things kind of follow hand in hand a lot. And I could belabor this point probably much more than I currently am, but excuse me, did you hear that little burp? I just burped. Let's move on to the next. Close the door, you guys. Close the door. How many... You have seen this in film, and I've seen this in film because I'm upset about it. Whenever an actor walks into a room, or walks into the house from outside, they never close the door. Just close the door. And the same thing with talking on the phone. You're talking on the phone. Hey, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll be there. Click. And then, hang on. No. That's not how phone conversations happen. You say, okay, yeah, I will be there. I will see you then. Okay, goodbye. Click. People don't, I understand it takes an extra 4 seconds to end a phone call. It takes an extra 4 seconds to close the door. And that's 4 seconds of screen time that you eat up. That's 4 seconds of screen time that you could place somewhere else. But the reality of the situation is that people close their doors when they walk into a house. People say goodbye when they hang up the phone. They don't just repeat the information given to them and then hang up. That's not how phone conversations work. So you're talking about a cardinal film sin for this guy? Just close the door. It's not that hard. All right, last on my list, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch more. I just wanted to make a top 5. Youthful awareness. Now, this normally sometimes is a good thing, especially in today's culture. There's this idea of youthful awareness where the protagonist of the film is generally a young person, someone in their early teens, mid-teens, even high school, right? And for the narrative purposes of the story, this character, being the protagonist, needs to know more, or maybe not know more, but they're doing things correctly or the right way above and beyond what an adult would do. This is so perfectly illustrated in the television show The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I loved The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. If you don't know this about me, I'm a fairly kind of religious person in my personal life. I believe in, God and all that stuff. I'm not going to go into details about it, but, I'm a believer. I drink the Kool-Aid, right? So seeing kind of a satanic backwards version of religion, but still keeping like this idea of religion at the heart of what they're talking about, and either believing or not believing, or being in support of being not in support of archaic practices, I think is a really interesting, fascinating approach to examining religion, and examining maybe not just religion, but examining ideas that we have been conditioned to just accept. I think that was a brilliant storytelling gambit to use within that show, right? The problem that I had with The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, because she is the protagonist, she has to be right. It's just the way that they've designed the show, she has to be right. That's not the way the show needs to go, but that's just the direction that the filmmakers and the storytellers of the show have taken for the character, right? Because she's Sabrina, because she's the chosen one, she needs to have all the right answers, even if it means that the adults who kind of actually do, in fact, know more than she does, just for the sake of furthering the story. And it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy because now it makes it look like the adults are bumbling buffoons because they can't figure out, or they're so resistant to the idea of change, or like, she's the champion, she's the one that's, no, we need to do this because it's the right cause. Well, why can't the right cause also be reflected in other characters besides her? I'm all for championing the right cause. I am all on board for having timely and socially, what am I trying to say? Like social timely discussions and conversations, things that we don't talk about, things that have been swept under the rug. I'm all for having those conversations. Let's examine this a little bit. Let's ask the question, why are we doing things the same way that we've always been doing things? Let's examine that a little bit. I'm interested to change things from within. But when you have a character like Sabrina, who has this youthful awareness, saying, well, this isn't right, and I'm going to show you why. It's so infuriating because that's not how things work. It's frustrating for me. And it's not just Sabrina, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. It's a host of other television shows and movies as well. Like to say, well, I'm the kid in the story and I know what's best. And because of my decisions as a kid, I'm going to get all the adults to realize their wrongful ways, right? It's just, it frustrates me. It frustrates me. So anyway, guys, yeah, those are my top 5 cardinal film sins. I'm interested to hear what your top 5 cardinal film sins, or just film sins in general. What are your thoughts? Jump on down to the comment section below and let's have a discussion about it. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you like this video, click like. If you really like this video, click subscribe. And if you really, really like this video, click share. Because that is exactly what the golden idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark would want you to do. Whoosh, whoosh.